Before dragons flew across screens and pages, they slept beneath our feet. In riverbanks, in mountains, in bones pulled from the earth and given a name too powerful to question. Tonight, we follow the dragon not as a monster, but as a memory. A shape born from fear, wonder, weather, and fire. From ancient rivers to candlelit churches, from fossils to flight, this is the quiet story of why dragons never left us. So settle in. Let the world grow dim. And listen as the oldest myth breathes again. Good evening, and welcome back to Noctivara Stories. Tonight, we journey back to the very edges of memory, beyond written history, beyond kingdoms and crowns, to follow the shadow of one of humanity's oldest and most persistent legends. The dragon. Across continents and centuries, cultures that never met each other dreamed of the same creature. Vast, scaled, serpentine, a being that ruled fire, water, storm, or darkness itself. From the river valleys of China to the deserts of the Near East, from European forests to the mountains of the Americas, the dragon appears again and again, wearing different faces, yet carrying the same ancient weight. Why? Why did so many civilizations imagine the same monstrous form? What fear, or truth, gave it breath? And why has the dragon endured, long after the gods that birthed it faded into myth? Tonight, we will trace the dragon back to its first heartbeat. Not as a fairy tale beast, but as an idea, one shaped by floods and droughts, by chaos and survival, by the human need to make sense of a dangerous world. Some cultures saw dragons as wise guardians, keepers of balance and rain. Others feared them as devourers of light, hoarders of life, bringers of ruin. Yet whether feared or revered, the dragon never vanished. And as always, wherever you're listening from, whether night has already settled in your window, or curiosity has simply led you here, I'm glad you're with me. Now, let us begin. If we return to the earliest written myths, the world does not begin peacefully. There is no garden yet. No harmony. There is a storm. There is water without boundary. And within that water, something stirs. In ancient Mesopotamia, scribes pressed the story into clay tablets while cities were still young. They called the primordial chaos Tiamat, a vast mother of gods, shaped like a monstrous sea serpent. She was not evil in the simple sense. She was older than order itself. Endless, restless, fertile, and terrifying. In the Babylonian epic Enuma Elish, the young god Marduk stands before the assembly of the gods and agrees to face her, not for glory, but for structure. For a world that can hold its shape. He casts a net over her. He summons the winds. And when she opens her mouth to swallow him, the storm rushes in and holds her jaws apart. The arrow that follows does not simply kill her. It transforms her. Marduk splits her body in two. From one half, he fashions the sky. From the other, the earth. From her eyes flow the rivers, the lifelines of civilization. Creation, in this vision, is not gentle. It is violent order imposed on chaos. And this idea, this battle between a storm god and a serpent of untamed power, echoes across the ancient world. Among the Hittites, the storm god faces Illuyanka, a serpent who steals his eyes and heart. A striking image, a world robbed of sight and courage. Through deception, sacrifice, and loss, balance is restored, but at a terrible cost. These myths are not heroic fantasies. They are warnings. Order is never free. Along the coast of Ugarit, the Storm Lord Baal battles Lotan, a seven-headed sea serpent, described as twisting, fleeing, endless. Centuries later, this same creature reappears in Hebrew poetry as Leviathan, a dragon so vast that iron breaks against its hide, smoke pours from its nostrils, and human weapons mean nothing. In the book of Job, Leviathan is not merely an enemy. It is a reminder. The world contains forces beyond human mastery. Egypt turned this struggle into ritual. Each night, as the sun god Ra traveled through the underworld, the serpent Apep rose to devour the light. Priests recited spells, crushed wax effigies, stabbed and burned the serpent's name, believing that words and actions could hold chaos at bay and ensure the return of dawn. And every morning, when the sun rose again, the dragon had been defeated once more. Yet not all dragons were enemies. In Babylon, a creature known as Mushusu stood proudly on the Ishtar gate. Part serpent, part lion, part bird, it guarded the city as a symbol of divine protection. The same form that once embodied chaos could, when mastered, become a shield. This is the secret at the heart of dragon mythology. The dragon is not just destruction. It is power. Uncontrolled, it floods fields and shatters cities. Chained or guided, it becomes the force that sustains life. Persian myth preserves this tension in the figure of Zahak, a dragon king cursed with serpents growing from his shoulders, symbols of hunger, drought, and deceit. He is not slain, but bound to a mountain, waiting. Chaos is never destroyed forever. It is only restrained. Across these cultures, the dragon becomes a language. A way to speak about floods and famine. About kingship and responsibility. About the fragile line between survival and collapse. To slay or bind, the dragon is to promise the people that rivers will flow, crops will grow, and the world will hold together one more season. And so, before dragons hoarded gold, before knights raised lances, before fire filled medieval skies, the dragon was already there, coiled around the problem of existence itself. In the lands of Anatolia, where steppe meets forest and the wind carries the smell of rain and dust together, the Hittites told a story that never pretended victory was simple. They spoke of a storm god who faced a serpent called Iluyanka and lost. In the first telling, the serpent does not merely wound the god. It takes from him what makes rule possible: his eyes, his heart, sight and courage. The world, without them, drifts toward blindness and fear. A goddess counsels a mortal hunter. A plan is laid not with force, but with patience. At a feast, the serpent is bound with rope. Only then does the storm god strike. But the story does not end with triumph. To restore order, the god must sacrifice his own son, married into the serpent's house. The cost is unbearable, and the tale does not soften it. It feels older than celebration, older than hymns of praise. It says two things at once. Order can return, but it never returns without loss. And a serpent that wins once can be defeated again, but only if God and people act together, holding the rope with steady hands. Egypt tells the same truth, but sets it to a clock. Each night, as the sun slips beneath the western horizon, the solar barge enters the dark river of the underworld. And each night, the serpent Apep rises to meet it. There is no final battle here. No once-and-for-all victory. Instead, priests far from the river's mouth perform the same actions again and again. They spit on wax figures. They stab them. They burn them. They grind their ashes and scatter the dust. The victory is ritual, and it must be repeated. In this, Egypt may be the most honest of all. No single fight tames the world forever. Every season has its serpent. Every night has its black water. Grain is sown only because the story is told again, and hands remember what to do when fear returns. Across these lands, the pieces line up with quiet consistency. The opponent is serpentine, often many-headed. It lives in water or hoards it. It blocks what should flow. The champion is a stormbringer or one who borrows the storm's tools. Thunder, lightning, a spear shaped like a bolt. He frees a river, opens a spring, clears a sky. The true victory is not the corpse of a monster. It is rain striking fields that had cracked open under the sun. A scholar might call this a shared mythic pattern. A simpler truth will do. Neighbors learn from neighbors. Tribes carry their songs as they move. Long before ships stitched the Mediterranean to the Indus, people traded more than copper and grain. They traded names of gods, shapes of monsters, ways to speak about danger. A good story travels faster than a caravan. Once you have heard of a hero who frees the waters by spearing a serpent in a mountain pass, it is hard to forget when you see a river burst from a limestone gate after rain. The image stays. It settles into memory. These stories are not only about weather or farming. They teach what leadership is meant to be. A god who sits on a throne must have faced the dragon. A king who claims divine favor must mirror that deed, not with mythic weapons, but with just wars, fair laws, and canals that keep the water moving. In Mesopotamia, kings cut channels through silt and named them gifts of Marduk. In Egypt, a pharaoh proved he held Apep at bay by keeping calendars, tending temples, and filling storehouses for lean years. The hero of myth is not a lone adventurer. He is an image of good rule. If he fails, famine and despair rise with the serpent. There is also a smaller meaning, closer to the skin. The monster can be a sickness, a drought of the heart, a fear that wakes you in the darkest hour. The hero can be a parent who does not give up, a wise woman who knows when to heat the iron, neighbors who rope a problem together and pull as one. Myths endure not because priests repeat them, but because the mind recognizes itself in their shapes. There is always a river to free. There is always a wound that needs the right fire. When cities fell and new tongues rose, the story did not end. In Greek poems still read today, Perseus flies to a shore and finds a royal daughter chained to stone while a sea monster coils in the deep. He does not meet force with force. He turns a greater terror against itself and wins the day. In another tale, Jason sings a serpent to sleep so that the golden fleece and a way home can be taken. The lesson is steady. The serpent guards what is needed. The hero finds the one tactic that works. Sometimes it is steel. Sometimes a lullaby. Sometimes patience. Far to the north, among fjords and long winters, the pattern grows colder but not weaker. There, a world serpent coils around the sea itself. Even the gods fear it. In another telling, a dragon lies on a hoard in the heath. A boy trained by a wandering smith waits in a trench and drives his sword upward as the belly passes. Different land. Same bones. These tales were not bedtime fancies. They were proofs and warnings. Proof that what seems unbeatable can be faced. Warning that nothing stays mastered without watchfulness. The serpent never dies forever. It returns under a new name. Drought becomes flood. A beast at the spring becomes a sickness on the wind. The remedy does not change. A champion steps forward. With the right tool. With companions who know their part. And the patience to finish what has begun. And often, the hero is not alone. Someone forged the weapon. Someone keeps the torch. A goddess gives counsel. A priest speaks the words. Courage works best when hands join. If you turn east, toward China, the dragon story begins even earlier, before writing, before kings, in villages that shape jade and watch the sky for rain. Archaeologists uncover small jade figures bent like the letter S, heads lifted, tails tucked close. Pig dragons, they are called, though the name hardly matters. They were carved 5,000 years ago and buried with care. That tells you everything. The dragon was already sacred, already bound to life and death. When Chinese writing appears on bone and bronze, the character for dragon keeps the same long body. Its coils appear beside kings' names, harvest counts, and offerings. Masks and spirals wind across ritual vessels. Farmers would have understood them at a glance. The Chinese dragon gathers the strongest parts of many animals. Antlers, claws, whiskers, scales. It belongs to river, mountain, and sky at once. Above all, it is a lord of water. It rises with thunder. It coils in cloud. Rain comes because dragons move. A good year is a year when dragons are pleased. From this grew an order of worship and rule. Each region honored a dragon king of lake, river, or sea. When drought lingered, magistrates fasted and prayed. Farmers carried images through the streets and beat drums shaped like thunder. At the water's edge, rituals were performed so that the dragon might stir and the fields might live again. Here, the dragon is not the enemy of order. It is its source. When storms broke the coast and fishing boats failed to return, women climbed the temple steps with lamps cupped in their hands. They carried petitions written on thin paper, their words light but urgent, asking the Dragon King to still the sea. This was not a distant superstition or a decoration at the edge of belief. It was the spine of daily life in a land shaped by rice paddies and river silt, where water meant survival. At the highest level of that same belief, the court claimed the dragon as its own mirror in heaven. Emperors said their right to govern flowed downward from the sky. They called it the mandate of heaven. To show this bond, they sat upon the dragon throne and wore robes embroidered with waves, mountains, and 9 coiling beasts climbing toward a flaming pearl. That pearl has never been explained once and for all. Some say it is thunder. Some say it is the moon caught in cloud. Others call it perfect wisdom, just out of reach. What matters is not the answer, but the chase. The dragon seeks the pearl, and the emperor must seek harmony between earth and heaven in the same way. Law made the image precise. Only the emperor could wear dragons with 5 claws. Princes were limited to 4. Officials to 3. The rule was exact, and the message was unmistakable. The closer you stood to the Son of Heaven, the closer you stood to the dragon. You can still walk the old palace and read this claim in stone and tile. Walls in the Forbidden City carry panels of 9 glazed dragons, each with a different temper. Bridges cross palace streams on the backs of stone turtles and carved bisha, sometimes called dragon sons. A marble ramp rises toward the great halls, carved with more than 1,000 overlapping scales, a frozen wave climbing upward. Even the roof lines bite into the sky, their ridged beasts shaped like small dragons that guard against fire and misfortune. You live under dragons in that city. They watch from pillars. They coil around thrones and incense burners. The eye is meant to understand without words. The emperor rules. If floods or famine follow him year after year, then the dragons are displeased and heaven has turned its face away. Ancient stories fold naturally into this language of rule. One of the oldest tells of you the Great, who saved the land from a flood that lasted for years. He did not try to dam the waters. He studied their paths and cut new channels, working with a turtle spirit and, in some tellings, with dragons that hold earth in their claws. The flood receded. Fields returned. A dynasty began. This is not a tale of conquest, but of alignment. You succeeds because he listens to the land. In another legend, the Yellow Emperor takes on the aspect of a dragon at his death and rises to heaven. This is not a claim of scales and wings, but a statement of transformation. A founder's spirit joins the realm of cloud and thunder. Other stories soften the grandeur. A farmer named Dong Fu learns the will of dragons through honesty rather than force. A village turtle grows old, wise, and becomes a dragon over time. The lesson repeats in many forms. Dragons favor those who move with the proper order of things. Look upward, and the dragon rules the sky as well. The azure dragon of the east stands among the four great guardians, alongside the white tiger of the west, the vermilion bird of the south, and the black tortoise of the north. The dragon presides over spring and the element of wood. When shoots rise and plows cut the soil, the dragon is awake. Astronomers traced its long body through a chain of constellations. Poets spoke this language without thinking. A warm spring wind is a dragon stirring. A sudden storm is a dragon rolling in its sleep. Unlike its western cousin, the Chinese dragon is not a destroyer. It has no wings, yet it flies. It does not burn villages. It brings rain and fortune. Painters show it writhing among clouds, whiskers streaming, eyes fixed on the pearl. One master painted 9 dragons in ink so alive that the paper seems to buckle beneath them. On blue and white porcelain, dragons chase one another through waves and spirals. Carvers set them on bridgeheads where water runs, asking the current to behave. Even sound belongs to the dragon. Temple bells often carry small dragon figures on their crowns so that each strike carries like a distant roar. In the streets and fields, the dragon becomes motion. During the first moon of the year, teams of men lift a long dragon of silk and bamboo. Lanterns glow within its body. Drums roll like thunder. Children scatter and laugh. Old men watch with hands tucked into sleeves. The dance is a prayer disguised as celebration. Wake the luck. Wake the rain. In the 5th month, rowers lean forward in narrow boats with carved dragon heads. Drums keep time. Oars flash and bite the water. The race remembers a poet who died for honor, but it also speaks to the river in the old language of speed and rhythm. Bring rain in its season. Do not bring flood. The tradition grows detailed enough to name the dragon's children. People speak of 9 dragon sons, each with a habit. One loves weight and crouches beneath tablets and steles. One curls along roof ridges to guard against fire. One delights in sound and serves as a bell handle. One bears his fangs on door knockers and sword guards to frighten thieves. The lists vary, because they were never meant to be fixed. They are craftsman's shorthand. Carve this here, and you ask for this kind of help. Even philosophy made room for the dragon. Scholars of the 5 phases placed it in the realm of growth and renewal. Confucian teachers warned rulers that they must deserve their dragons. A good ruler holds rain and cloud in balance. A bad one thrashes the lake and floods the night. Daoist masters told of adepts who rode dragons through storms after learning to live lightly and understand the breath that moves through all things. The image proved so strong that outsiders adopted it as well. Travelers from the west wrote of a land ruled by scaled symbols, of palaces that shimmered like skies filled with beasts. The dragon moved onto flags and coins, becoming political as well as sacred. Even when dynasties fell and a republic rose, the dragon did not vanish. It stepped off the flag but stayed in festivals, bridges, ceramics, and memory. Some roots are too deep to cut. Set the Chinese dragon beside its western cousin and the contrast speaks clearly. The Chinese dragon does not hoard gold. It does not demand sacrifice. It rarely breathes fire. It binds water to virtue, rain to rule, heaven to field. The emperor wears it to claim harmony. The mason carves it so the stream will behave. A whole civilization speaks through a single image. One final pairing completes the picture. The dragon often appears beside the phoenix, bird of renewal. Dragon and phoenix together stand for balanced rule. Emperor and empress. Power and grace. Palace builders placed them in pairs so the message would be understood without reading. Harmony above brings harmony below. Rain in season. Harvest in season. Life in season. The ancient fear of flood and drought never disappears. It is transformed into pattern, ritual, and beauty. And if the Chinese dragon is a bearer of cloud and an emblem of rule, then the dragons of the wider Asian world form a great and branching family. They dwell in rivers, caves, and palaces beneath the sea. Some teach. Some shelter. Some test the worth of those who approach them. Sometimes that meant a change in the footing stones. Sometimes the right song sung at the right hour, with light held steady. In this way, practical work and myth met without embarrassment. A builder did what proved sound, then thanked the spirit who allowed it. If you step back far enough, a clear pattern rises from these local tales. Across Asia, the dragon and the Naga are bound to water, to the fertility of fields, to the turning of the year. They give a face to monsoon and river. They explain the spark that leaps from cloud to peak and the hiss of a spring that never dries. Courts claimed them as badges of authority because rulers were judged by canals kept clear, dikes held firm, and storehouses filled against lean years. Villages kept them as neighbors because a family's food and safety depended on rain that came on time and rivers that stayed in their beds. Where the serpent menaces, a saint or hero acts. Where the serpent protects, a wise person learns restraint and offering. You can still feel this logic in daily gestures. A child runs beneath a paper dragon at New Year in a Korean port and learns that the sea can be a friend if honored. A low boat team pulls in rhythm while a monk shakes a bronze bell crowned with a dragon handle, praying for a safe race and a kind season. A Balinese carver cuts scales into stone at the foot of a stair where villagers leave fruit and ask that a fever break. A Japanese visitor cups water from a dragon fountain and rinses mouth and hands before tying a wish to a branch. These acts say the same thing without a book. We live with powers greater than ourselves. We can make peace with them. And we must be ready to stand when they turn wild. Taken together, these dragons across Asia feel like a single river with many bends. They do not hoard gold. They do not sit in caves counting cups. They are not trophies for a spear. They are neighbors, patrons, and sometimes judges. They make kings honest, builders careful, farmers humble, and storytellers brave. The people who passed these tales to their children were teaching how to live beside water that gives life, and how to endure the rare days when that same water rears like a serpent and takes what it wants. When Greek poets used the word draken, they meant a great serpent with a gaze that never sleeps. The root of the word speaks of looking hard, of watching. Again and again, these creatures are set to guard what matters. They coil beside springs that feed a city. They lie beneath trees that bear golden fruit. They keep watch over fleeces and favors that kings dream of stealing. A hero who wants water, treasure, or divine favor must face the watcher, kill it, trick it, or pass without a wound. Delphi is the right place to begin, because the myths place a serpent at the birth of prophecy. Before Apollo's bright order, the valley belonged to Earth herself. A great serpent named Python lived there and made the spring its own. When Apollo came, he loosed his arrows and struck the creature down so his shrine could rise beside the clear water. In some tellings, the god chooses the fight. In others, he takes revenge for his mother. Either way, a new order replaces an old one. The oracle's name, Pythia, keeps the memory of the dead serpent and the rot of its body. Even victory carries the trace of what it displaced. Travel to Thebes and you meet another serpent whose death raises a city. Cadmus follows a cow to choose a site. He sends men to fetch water from a spring sacred to Ars. A serpent rises and kills them. Cadmus goes himself, grapples the beast, and drives a spear through its jaw. At Athena's command, he sows the serpent's teeth in the ground. Armed men spring up and fight until only 5 remain. These survivors help build the walls and become founders of noble houses. The story plants a dragon at the root of a city and makes its teeth the seed of a people. It also remembers the debt. Cadmus must serve Ars for years to pay for the blood he spilled. A serpent slain gives life, but there is always a reckoning. By the marshes of Lerna, Heracles meets the Hydra on a day when strength alone is not enough. The creature lives in foul water and bears many heads. When one is cut, 2 grow back. Heracles has brought his nephew Iolaus to drive the chariot. That choice saves him. They find a rhythm: cut, sear, move. A torch closes the wound so it cannot multiply. The last head, immortal, is crushed beneath a stone. Heracles dips his arrows in the poisoned blood and carries death with him from that day on. Later, that same poison will find him again through a shirt soaked in lies. The Hydra is more than a task checked off a list. It teaches that some problems worsen if struck blindly, and that victory often leaves a residue you must carry. Far to the west, a grove holds trees with apples of gold. The Hesperides tend them, and laid in coils among the branches as their guardian. No thief passes while the serpent watches. Heracles needs the apples for his labor. Stories disagree on how he succeeds. In one, he kills Ladin and takes the fruit. In another, he persuades Atlas to pluck the apples and then finds a way to make the Titan lift the sky again while he slips away with the prize. Both keep the same truth. A dragon guards treasure bright as the sun, and a hero must weigh force against craft. Painters love the scene, a long body winding through leaves, shining fruit just within reach and just beyond it. Across the Black Sea, another dragon lies sleepless in the grove of Ars at Colchis. The golden fleece hangs there, bright as dawn, memory of a flying ram that once saved a prince. Jason and the Argonauts arrive facing a task no arm can finish. The serpent never closes its eyes. Medea, who knows herbs and words, softens the creature with drugs and song. It slackens. The fleece is taken. Here the dragon is not killed. It is overcome by knowledge that the men do not fully understand, and that will later cost them dearly. The lesson remains: a guardian can be lulled as well as slain, and the one who calms it often pays on the journey home. Greek myths do not keep their serpents only at springs and groves. Sea monsters rise when a city offends a god or when a king boasts past sense. The old word katos names such a beast. When Ethiopia is cursed, Andromeda is chained to a rock as an offering to the deep. Perseus flies above the waves, reveals the head of Medusa, and turns the monster to stone. In another tale, Troy is threatened until Heracles saves Hesione from the jaws. These are kin to the Grove Guardians. They belong to the law of the sea. Offend it and a serpent rises. Appease it and the shore is quiet again. At the rim of the world stands Typhon, not a guardian of a place but a challenge to the sky itself. Later poets give him 100 blazing heads. Zeus meets him with lightning and throws him down. Some say Typhon lies beneath Mount Etna, and the fire that spills from the mountain is his breath. The tale speaks to people who live with quake and flame. Order is real, but it is held by a victory that is never fully silent. The ground can still shudder when the old enemy rolls in sleep. In the oldest Greek poems, draken often means simply a snake. Omens are read in serpents that appear on the march. A snake devours birds before the army, and a seer counts the years of war in the act. Shields bear coiled serpents ready to strike. City walls are likened to a dragon's back. The line between animal and legend remains thin. Yet the habits we now call draconic are already here. The sleepless gaze, the poison, the many heads, the bond with water, the charge to guard sacred places and precious things. Across these stories, the Western dragon sharpens into a test. It watches, it waits, and it asks what a hero is willing to pay. The later age that will picture wings and fire is working with clay already shaped. Rome does not invent many dragon stories of its own, but it preserves Greek ones and presses them flat beneath the weight of legions, scholars, and collectors of marvels. Latin writers use the word draco for great serpents said to live in Africa and India. Pliny the Elder writes that a dragon will try to crush an elephant by coiling around it, and that both beasts may die locked together in the struggle. He also claims that in India, a serpent can grow so vast that a river slows when it drinks. The numbers are extravagant, but the habit is telling. Romans treat these creatures as part of the distant natural world, dangerous, rare, and astonishing, but real enough to deserve a place in a learned book. Dragons, for Rome, are not dreams. They are wonders at the edge of the map. There is a piece of Roman war that keeps a dragon at its heart and gives it a voice. When Roman legions fought Dacian forces along the Danube, they encountered warriors who carried a standard shaped like a dragon. A metal head with open jaws gulped the wind. A long textile body streamed behind like a living tail. When cavalry charged with the Draco raised high, the rushing air made it ripple and cry. The sound was sharp, uncanny, half howl, half scream. The Romans admired what worked. They adopted the standard for their own units, especially mounted troops. Coins from the later empire show soldiers bearing the Draco. Law codes speak of units called draconarii. In reliefs and field carvings, the dragon windsock appears again and again, cloth turned into fear, motion given a mouth. It is not a guardian of a spring, but it is still a watcher. It marks where a cohort stands. It announces power without flesh or breath. Roman poets kept the sea for signs and punishments. Virgil places a moment of terror at the fall of Troy when two great serpents rise from the waves and crush the priest Laocoon and his sons. He had warned his people against the wooden horse. The gods who favor the Greeks answer him with coils and silence. A sculptor later carves the scene in stone so vivid that you can see muscle strain against scale, human arms locked in a grip that cannot be broken. This is not yet the fire-breathing dragon of later ages. It is a divine instrument, exactly what Greek and Roman minds expect a great serpent to be. Greek myths live in images as much as in verse, and those images shape the dragon's future. On black figure vases, Apollo stands over a long serpent writhing beside a shrine. On red figure craters, Heracles grapples a many-headed snake while a companion leans in with a torch. On painted cups, Jason is shown emerging from the mouth of the Colchian serpent after taking the fleece, a clever way to explain escape without battle. Later sculptors set dragons beneath the feet of heroes as trophies that prove a tale. The forms repeat. Long bodies, crested heads, eyes that never close. Coils around trees and springs. If you listen closely to Greek and Roman stories, a few rules settle into place. A draken is most often a guardian. It watches something sacred or rare. It belongs to an older order of a place and must be removed, appeased, or outwitted for a new order to begin. It is bound to water and earth more than to air. It stings and strangles rather than burns. It can be lulled by song or herbs when iron would fail. It keeps faith with gods who value vigilance. The hero who meets it must bring craft as well as courage. The city that rises afterward carries the dragon in its bones, perhaps as a spring never taken lightly, perhaps as a family that traces its bloodline to teeth sown long ago. Rome leaves one more inheritance that will matter deeply. By turning the dragon into a military standard, and by writing of giant serpents as natural wonders rather than pure fantasy, the Romans keep the dragon within the realm of the plausible. When later centuries read Latin texts and study imperial reliefs, they do not see dragons as mere dreams. They see creatures that might live just beyond the last road, at the edge of empire. That belief will not fade. It will pass into medieval bestiaries that catalogue animals of creation. It will enter sermons where serpents stand for sin but also for real beasts said to haunt forests and valleys. The classical world hands down both the stories and the sense that dragons belong on maps. From here, the tale turns north. Leave the sunlit sea of Greece. Steer into colder water. Nights lengthen. Trees grow twisted by winter wind. In these lands, the serpent grows larger and more patient. It curls through the roots of the world tree. It lies over burial mounds. It learns to speak in time. It grows wings. It learns fire. And above all, it learns to love gold, not the spending of it, but its stillness, its weight, the way it shines alone in a dark hall. Norse poets set a serpent around the earth itself. They call it Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, child of a trickster god and a giantess. Cast into the sea, it grows until it can bite its own tail. Fishermen in long boats feel their minds tilt when they imagine that ring beneath the waves. One old song tells how Thor goes fishing with the giant Hymir. He tears the head from a great ox for bait and lowers a line thicker than a man's arm. The sea heaves. The serpent rises. Thor braces himself until his feet crash through the planks. He lifts his hammer. The sky darkens. At the last moment, Hymir panics and cuts the line. The sea closes. The coils vanish. The boat limps home. The story is not only about strength. It is about knowing that something vast lies just beyond reach, and that bringing it fully into the world might be a mistake. Another serpent gnaws at the roots of the world tree itself. NHGR choose where mist, frost, and the dead gather. A squirrel runs insults between the eagle in the branches and the dragon below. Deer strip bark. Rivers rise where dragons drink. This is not a map. It is a truth told sideways. All things endure because something eats at them. From the wide frame of the cosmos, the stories narrow to a single burial mound and a single man. In the Volsunga saga, gold becomes the turning point of flesh. A dwarf named Andvari hoards treasure in a river and guards a ring that hides him. The gods force him to surrender it to pay for a blood debt. He warns them. The ring is cursed. The warning holds. The gold passes to a father. His son Fafnir kills him for it and drags the hoard to a heath. He lies upon it so long that he becomes a dragon in truth, breathing poison, watching without sleep, needing neither sun nor company as long as the metal lies beneath him. Against him comes Sigurd, taught by the smith Regin, Fafnir's brother. The plan is simple. Dig a trench where the dragon drags its belly to water. Lie still. Drive the sword upward when the weight passes. Do not flinch. Sigurd does this beneath a calm sky. Steel enters. Blood floods the pit. The dragon speaks. Fafnir warns the boy that the gold will destroy every hand that grasps it. Sigurd answers with the blunt courage of youth. A man must die someday. better with deeds behind him. He tastes the dragon's blood. Birds speak. They warn him that Regin plans to kill him in his sleep. Sigurd rises, kills the smith, loads the gold onto horses, and rides into a fate heavy with love and grief. Here, the dragon is no longer only a guardian. It is greed made flesh. It is time piled into metal. It is the shadow that falls when wealth stops moving. And from this northern telling, wings harden, fire kindles, and the medieval dragon steps fully into the dark halls of the West. The later ages, those that would paint dragons with wings and fire, were never starting from nothing. They worked with clay already shaped by older hands. Long before the knight and the saint, before the bell tower and the illuminated page, the dragon was already waiting. Rome did not invent many dragons of its own. What it did instead was preserve them. Latin writers spoke of dracones not as pure fantasy, but as distant creatures, vast serpents said to haunt the edges of the known world. Africa, India, the long rivers that vanished into heat and rumor. Pliny the Elder writes of dragons that coil around elephants, crushing them in slow, terrible contests where both beasts may perish together. He writes of serpents so immense that they halt rivers when they drink. These numbers are wild, but the habit behind them is calm. Romans treated dragons as dangerous parts of nature, rare, distant, but real enough to deserve a place in a learned book. And Rome gave the dragon a voice. On the Danube frontier, Roman legions encountered warriors who carried a standard unlike any they had seen before. It was shaped like a dragon, its head cast in metal, its jaws open wide. Behind it streamed a long cloth body that caught the wind. When cavalry charged with this Draco raised high, the air rushed through its mouth and made it sing. Not a roar, not a scream, but a hollow, living sound that carried fear across a field. Rome admired what it feared. They adopted the standard. Soon the dragon flew at the head of Roman horsemen, stamped into coins, carved into stone, named in law codes. Not a beast at a spring, but a watcher all the same. A mouth that cried without a throat. Roman poets kept the sea for marvels. Virgil tells of two great serpents rising from the waves to crush the Trojan priest Laocoon and his sons. The priest had spoken against the wooden horse. The gods answered not with words, but with coils and bone-crushing silence. The Trojans, terrified, dragged the horse inside their walls. That scene lived on not only in verse, but in marble. You can still see the strain in the sculpted bodies. The stone remembers the grip. In Greek art, dragons and serpents appear again and again. Apollo standing over the writhing guardian of Delphi. Heracles wrestling the many-headed Hydra. Jason emerging from the jaws of the Colchian serpent, clever enough to survive where strength alone would fail. The pattern is steady. A draken is a guardian. It watches what is sacred. It belongs to an older order. It must be lulled, outwitted, or slain for something new to rise. It is a creature of earth and water, not of flame. It strangles. It stings. It sleeps, but never fully. And when Rome hands these stories to later ages, it hands them something else as well, the idea that dragons belong on maps. That belief survives the fall of empire. It walks north. In colder lands, the serpent grows patient. The sunlit seas of Greece give way to iron-gray waters. Forests thicken. Winters lengthen. Here, the dragon settles deeper into the ground. It coils through roots and barrows. It learns to wait. Norse poets speak of a serpent cast into the sea by the gods themselves, Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. It grows until it encircles the world, biting its own tail. Fishermen feel the weight of that idea when the water goes still and too quiet. One song tells of Thor rowing into deep water with the giant Hymir. An ox's head is used as bait. The line is thicker than a man's arm. When the serpent rises, the sea itself seems to bend. Thor lifts his hammer. The sky darkens. At the last moment, the line is cut. The serpent sinks. The world is spared, for now. Another dragon gnaws at the roots of the world tree. NHGGR. Below frost and mist, where the dead gather, it chews patiently. Above, an eagle watches. Between them, a squirrel runs insults up and down the trunk. The image is not a map. It is a truth. All living things are held between decay and renewal. From the wide frame of cosmos, the tales narrow. A single mound. A single man. In the Volsunga saga, a dwarf's cursed gold passes from hand to hand until it transforms a man named Fafnir into a dragon, not only in body, but in soul. He settles over the hoard. He breathes poison. He never sleeps. Against him comes Sigurd. Young. Quiet. Careful. He digs a pit. He waits. When the dragon passes, he strikes upward. The blood speaks. Birds speak. The curse continues. The dragon falls. The gold remains. Later singers change the names, but keep the bones. Siegfried. A bath in dragon's blood. One leaf. One small place left soft. In Beowulf, the dragon comes at the end. Not as a trial of youth, but as the measure of a king. A cup is stolen. The dragon wakes. Fire rolls over the land. Beowulf walks to the barrow with his men. They falter. One does not. Wiglaf stands. Steel breaks. Shields melt. The dragon dies. So does the king. Gold glows in the dark cave, untouched. A barrow rises on a sea cliff. A woman sings of wars yet to come. The dragon is dead. The wound in the land remains. Smaller worms haunt wells and hills. The lambton worm. The linton worm. Creatures that grow in darkness, fed by neglect. These stories smell of pitch and smoke and tide. They teach that wit matters as much as strength. That monsters are often born of what is thrown away. Carvers remembered this. They set dragon heads on church roofs, biting the air. Runestones coil words inside serpent bodies. Ships glare at foreign shores with dragon prows, then remove them before landing, so as not to offend the spirits of the land. Gold lies beneath it all. Buried. Hidden. Waiting. The poets give the dragon a reason to love it. Gold does not argue. It does not leave. It only shines. The dragon becomes greed made watchful. And when the old gods fade, the dragon does not. It moves closer to home. It waits for saints. 4 bells. 4 armor and prayer. And that is where the next age will find it. Still watching. Still counting. Still awake. Children once watched plays on feast days where a scaled monster lumbered through the square, gulping smoke, rattling its jaws, while a holy rider drove it back with a lance. The crowd laughed and gasped. Bells rang. Drums thundered. And beneath the play, beneath the bright cloth and painted scales, something older was being taught. In this new world, the dragon was no longer only a creature of springs and barrows. It had become a lesson with claws. It stood for pride that swelled until it poisoned the well. For greed that hoarded while neighbors starved. For fear that spread like a foul breath through a town at night. It also stood for the old powers, the unnamed forces of forest and water, that the church said must now bow to a higher rule. Most people begin this chapter with St. George, because his story traveled farther than any other. From the sunlit shores of the eastern Mediterranean to the rain-soaked fields of England, His name learned the shape of courage. The earliest passions say only that George was a soldier who died for the faith. Later tellers gave him a horse, a lance, a city in trouble. In the Golden Legend, a book of saints' lives gathered in the 13th century, the scene is set near a town called Silene. There, a dragon has claimed a marsh. Its breath poisons the water. To keep it at bay, the people bring sheep. When the flocks run out, they bring children. Lots are drawn. Fear becomes routine. At last, the lot falls to the king's daughter. She walks to the shore dressed as if for a wedding, while the city closes its gates behind her. George rides into the story as if from a door in the sky. He does not shout. He does not bargain. He makes the sign of the cross and lowers his lance. The strike does not kill the dragon at once. It wounds it. The beast thrashes and coils, and George calls to the princess. She takes her sash and loops it around the dragon's neck. And the people watch in disbelief as the creature follows her, quiet now, humbled, through the gate like a great, obedient hound. Only when the town promises to turn its heart does George kill the dragon, cleanly and without rage. The well runs clear again. In this telling, the battle is not about strength. It is about order. Faith does not merely destroy terror. It tames it. The name of George traveled with crusaders along long roads and under strange skies. In the East, he was already a soldier saint. Men liked to believe he rode beside them. By the time English kings raised armies under a red cross on white, George had become a banner of courage itself. His feast was kept by royal order. Guilds took him as protector. Painters set him on a fine horse with a calm face, the dragon small beneath his spear, almost already defeated. You can still stand before such a painting and feel how carefully the moment is held, the lance sliding between ribs, the princess holding a leash, the city wall distant and watchful. It is theater and theology. Other saints meet dragons differently. Saint Margaret of Ange is remembered as a young woman who would not yield. In her prison cell, a dragon appears and swallows her whole. She prays. She raises a small wooden cross. The cross wounds the beast from within, and she steps out alive. The image endured. Women called on her in childbirth. Stone carvers set her story on church walls. A small girl stepping calmly from a torn serpent, light still in her hands. In France, the people of the Rhône told of Saint Martha and the Tarasque, a river monster that broke nets and dragged boats under. Soldiers failed to kill it. Martha came with holy water and a psalm. The creature grew still. She led it back with a cord. The people, afraid even then, struck it dead. Each year in Tarascan, a great wooden beast still rolls through the streets, led by drums. Not as a warning, but as a memory of a dragon subdued by song. Another bishop, Saint Roman, faced a creature by the Seine. He looped his stole around its neck and led it like a bridled horse. The people burned it and kept its head as a charm. Stone masons remembered. They carved gargoyles, dragons that spit clean rainwater from cathedral roofs. What once fouled the air now protects the wall. Across the sea, in Celtic lands, the saints speak more softly still. Saint Carantoc sets down an altar stone, says Mass, lifts it as if it weighs nothing, and leads a dragon away from the river. No blade, no blood, only order restored. And above all stands the Archangel Michael. In the book of Revelation, he casts down the ancient serpent. Painters place a dragon under his feet. Sometimes he weighs souls while the beast claws at the scale. Shrines bearing his name cling to mountaintops and borders, where earth and cloud meet. The dragon may be small in the carving, but its meaning is vast. To the people of those centuries, Dragons were not harmless fancy. Bestiaries listed them among the greatest of serpents. Isidore of Seville wrote of their love for caves and their fear of crushed laurel. Crocodile skins hung in churches. Whale bones became monsters of the deep. Fossil shark teeth were sold as dragon tongues and worn against poison. Scholars smile now. A farmer walking past a church porch with a great jawbone above the door did not smile. He felt guarded. Sermons sharpened the symbol. The coils were pride. The breath was slander and plague. The hoard was wealth withheld from the poor. In stained glass, a dragon crouches by a well while a saint blesses the water. The image teaches without words. If the well is to run sweet, someone must stand between the people and what fouls it. The parish theatre gave this lesson voice. On St. George's Day, a canvas dragon lunged through crowds. Smoke poured from its mouth. Children screamed and laughed. A girl in white walked beside it with a ribbon leash. When the spear struck, drums roared. Then came procession, blessing, and feast. This was not mockery. It was faith made visible. Even in plague years, when bells tolled without pause, towns dragged wooden dragons out through the gates, as if fear itself could be hauled away. A priest who had buried too many used every language he had to steady hearts. And so the dragon endured, not only as terror, but as a shape that fear could take and be faced. In the medieval world, the dragon kept two faces. One was the beast in the marsh beyond the last fence of a town. The other was the devil in a sermon. Most often, the two were the same. For many people, the daily fear was not of claws or fire. It was the quieter dread that a season might fail, that sickness would come, that the river would rise, or the well would turn foul. The stories of saints and dragons admit that fear without shame. They answer it with an image that steadies the heart, a person who stands between terror and the people and does not run. Sometimes that person fights. Sometimes that person speaks, and the beast obeys. Sometimes that person binds a wound, blesses a well, or draws a sign in the air. The shape of these stories fits the shape of a parish year. Feast and famine, sickness and recovery, bells and silence. The shift from the ancient dragon to the medieval one is not a clean break. The creature still guards water. It still lies near treasure and roads. It still troubles ships and poisons marshes. What is new is the conviction that the right word, spoken with patience, can check it. Where older heroes carried thunderbolts and swords of destiny, the saints carry rights and endurance. Where ancient kings sowed serpent teeth to raise cities, bishops set fonts and altars and teach people to hold steady together. The dragon is no longer only an enemy. It becomes a teacher of peril and of hope. By the time this age ripened, the dragon was everywhere. It spat rain from gargoyles high above the street. It coiled along the margins of bestiaries beside warnings about its unblinking gaze. It lay crushed beneath the feet of Michael on rough wooden screens. It beat drums in May games and made children squeal. It hung from church beams as a crocodile brought from far shores. It crouched in the mouth of a cave outside the village in stories told when the wind worried the trees. The dragon had become a common language. When people said dragon, they meant a danger faced together, and a victory that required courage and grace, not strength alone. All of this prepared the ground for the next kind of tale. Priests were not the only ones who stood between a village and a beast. Knights and common men stepped forward too, with iron, wit, and planning. Their stories are leaner, rougher. They speak of hunger and cold and fear in the body as much as fear in the soul. They also reshape the dragon. It grows wings. It breathes fire. It loves gold with a love that scorches the heart that covets it. Once the saints had shown that prayer could turn a monster, the lay world answered with steel and craft. These are stories of towns waking to smoke and hoofbeats, of notices nailed to church doors asking for any man with a steady hand, of forges ringing at midnight while a smith and a squire test a blade against seasoned oak. In these tales, the dragon is not always a figure for sin. Sometimes it is simply the thing that eats sheep, drinks from the mill pond, and frightens children from the lane. The knight steps into the road with mail, spear, and a plan. And very often, the plan is the difference. English ballads love such fights. They name the hill, the brook, the gate, so anyone nearby can point and say, "There." That is where the first shout rose. The tale of the lantern worm begins with a careless boy and a Sunday he chose to skip. He fishes the weir and hauls up a slick thing like a great eel. It coils around his arm. He shudders at its gaze and throws it into a well. Then he goes abroad to make a name. Years pass. The thing in the dark grows. It learns to climb. It leaves the well and wraps itself around a hill like a belt. It takes cattle. It breaks stone cottages with a sweep of its tail. When the boy returns, the land mutters his name with the worms. He seeks counsel from an old woman, who tells him to meet the creature in the river and to stud his armor with blades. He does. The worm coils to crush, and cuts itself on every iron thorn. The river runs red and carries the pieces away. But there is a debt left unpaid. The song says his house bore the cost in sorrow and thin years. The lesson lands twice. Forethought can kill a monster. Old oaths still must be honored. Not far away, the worm of Linton chewed its way into memory. It lived in a cave and took livestock from the road between farm and church. Somerville, a man of the border, had a spear forged wide, bound it with pitch and tow, set it alight, and waited. When the mouth opened, he thrust the fire inside. Smoke rolled over the heath. The worm burst. The story is short because the people who told it knew exactly how such work is done. The Wantley dragon is of another sort. It knocks down walls for the joy of hearing them fall. It swallows children, drains mill ponds, and laughs in its ruin. Its slayer, More of More Hall, is no saint. He drinks deep, jokes coarse, and wears armor bristling with spikes. He wrestles the beast in soft ground, rolls beneath its belly, and ends the fight with a blow so crude minstrels grin when they sing it. The ballad laughs, but it knows something sharp. Sometimes the monster is not distant. Sometimes it is close, greedy, and loud. And sometimes the answer is to fight without shame. There are quieter stories too. At Morriford, a girl named Maud fed a small dragon milk. It grew tame for her and terrible for all others. When it began to take lives, the people formed ranks, braced their spears, and stood fast. The dragon died. They buried it and named an oak for the girl who had loved what could not love back without ruin. In Krakow, the Warl dragon took cattle from the Vistula's banks. Knights failed. A cobbler's apprentice stuffed a calfskin with sulfur and pitch. The dragon swallowed it. Thirst drove it to the river until it burst. The people wrote a common man's name in their books. Stand there now and a bronze dragon still breathes fire for children on a schedule. The old trick still warms the face. Romances carry the same work into courts. Bevis of Hampton. Guy of Warwick. Knights who leave great houses to answer for burned fields and frightened towns. A noble title is not a shield. It is a call to step into the road. To the east, Slavic songs grow harsher. Dragons have many heads. Fights last days. Heroes boil in rivers and stand against winter itself. The work is the same. Endurance. Planning. A man spent down to his bones so that a place can breathe again. If you walk west to the Welsh Marches, there is a bare patch of hill called Dragon Hill. The grass does not grow there, they say, because dragon blood once fell on the chalk. Whether that is true matters less than this. By this age, the dragon had become the measure of a person. Not because it was always slain, but because someone always stepped forward. In the medieval world, the dragon carried two faces, and neither was simple. One face belonged to mud and reed and water. It was the creature that lurked in marshes, near bridges, beside wells where cattle drank and children played too close. The other face belonged to words. It rose from pulpits and painted walls and the low chant of sermons spoken on winter mornings. Often the two were not separate at all. The beast in the bog and the devil in the sermon were mirrors of the same unease. For most people, fear did not come dressed as a monster with wings. It came as a failed harvest, a cough that would not leave, a winter that stayed too long. The dragon absorbed those fears. It gave them a shape that could be named and faced. The stories of saints and dragons understand this quietly. They do not begin with roaring. They begin with endurance. A saint steps forward not always with a sword, but with steadiness. Sometimes the saint fights. Sometimes the saint speaks. Sometimes the saint stands between the beast and a frightened crowd and does not move. In many tales, the miracle is not that the dragon dies, but that it stops. A wound is bound. A spring is blessed. A village breathes again. The medieval dragon is not a break from the ancient one. It still guards water. It still lies near treasure and crossroads. It still troubles ships and roads and fields. What changes is the conviction that the right word, spoken at the right time, can check it. Where older heroes carried thunder and iron alone, saints carried patience and ritual. Where kings once swore oaths in blood to raise walls, bishops raised fonts and taught people how to endure a bad year together. The dragon became a teacher, not only of danger, but of hope. By the time this age ripened, the dragon was everywhere. It spat rain from stone gargoyles high above the street. It coiled in bestiaries beside careful warnings about its glare. It lay crushed beneath the feet of Saint Michael on painted screens. It rattled chains in mystery plays and made children shriek with a pleasure close to fear. Sometimes it was a real crocodile brought from distant lands and hung from church beams, dried into legend. And sometimes it crouched in a cave beyond the fields, waiting in a story told at night when the wind moved through bare branches. When people said dragon, they meant a danger faced together. They meant a trial that could be endured. They meant that courage, shared, might be enough. This prepared the ground for another kind of tale. Priests were not the only ones who stood between a village and a beast. Knights, farmers, smiths, and border riders stepped forward with iron, craft, and plans shaped by experience. Their stories are leaner, rougher. They speak of hunger in the body as much as fear in the soul. In these tales, the dragon grows wings and fire. It develops a love of gold that burns the heart that covets it. Once saints showed that prayer could turn a monster, the lay world answered with steel and wit. These stories begin with smoke on the horizon, with notices nailed to church doors calling for any man with a steady hand, with forges ringing at midnight while a smith and a squire test a blade against seasoned oak. Here, the dragon is not always sin. Sometimes it is simply the thing that eats sheep, fouls the mill pond, and keeps children from the lane after dusk. Knights step into the road with mail and spear and a plan, and the plan is often the difference. The English ballads preserve these moments carefully. They name hills, brooks, gates. They insist that the danger happened here. The lambton worm coils around a hill like a belt. The careless boy who once flung it into a well returns years later to face the weight of his own neglect. Iron thorns sewn into armor. A river enlisted as an ally. The monster dies. The debt remains. The land remembers. The worm of Linton meets fire instead. Pitch, patience, and a burning spear end the threat quickly. People in that country understood what worked. The Wantley dragon laughs at walls. It drinks mill ponds dry. It is met not by a saint, but by More of Moor Hall, a man who wears spiked armor and fights without shame. The ballad grins as it sings, but its lesson is sharp. Some monsters are powerful because people are polite. Some require a suit made exactly for the fight. There are quieter stories too. Sadder ones. The Moriford dragon is fed with milk by a girl who loves it. It grows. It kills. When the village stands firm and ends it, they bury the creature and name a tree for the girl. Pity and duty sit side by side. Neither is light. In Krakow, the dragon under Worrell Hill is undone by a cobbler's apprentice with sulfur and pitch. The beast drinks until it bursts. The city breathes again. A bronze dragon now breathes fire for children on a schedule. The old trick still warms the face. Romances enlarge these stories. Sir Bevis. Guy of Warwick. Noblemen stripped of comfort and sent back to answer for what their lands have suffered. A great house is not a shield. It is a place from which a man must leave when the bell rings. To the east, Slavic songs grow harsher. Three-headed dragons. Fights that last days. Boiling rivers. Mothers who warn, sons who must test the warning. The victories are earned with exhaustion. Winter does not end until a man spends himself against it. In the west, chalk hills remember blood. Dragon Hill stands bare. Nothing grows where the wound saved the land. Behind every tale, there is craft. Gambesons. Rawhide shields. Ash spears. Trenches dug in the old way. Wet cloaks against flame. Lime dust for ice. Bells. Dogs. Fire that moves faster than a man can step. The stories insist there is always a seam. Treasure glitters in silence afterward. Poems warn what comes next. Gold hoarded wakes worms. Gold shared builds bridges. Not all heroes are princes. Cobblers. Farmers. Border riders. Their names remain because their tools fit the work. Art remembers. Stone. Paint. Heraldry. A dragon underfoot. A promise made visible. And beneath it all, community. The fights are never truly solitary. Pride loses. Council survives. By the end of the medieval age, the dragon becomes a mirror. Of greed. Of hunger. Of fear. Of wit. Of work. Of trust. Later writers inherit the language. Barrows. Hoards. Soft places beneath wings. Then the dragon walks indoors. Into books. It learns to speak. To reason. To mock. Collectors gather old songs. Artists ink coils into shadow. Wagner sets greed to music. And Tolkien, reading old tongues, understands the hinge. Smaug wakes. He speaks. He counts. He believes himself alone in clarity. And in that chamber, filled with breath and gold, the entire history of dragons settles into one long, quiet glow, like embers holding through the night. You can hear Fafnir in it still. You can hear the barrow dragon, slow and patient beneath the earth. You can hear the hiss of a fire that no man can quench once it is loose among roofs and rafters. Tolkien did not set many dragons walking openly on the roads of the Lord of the Rings, but he salted the land with their memory. They are there in the bones of the world. He wrote of cold drakes that once crept out of the far north, pale and bitter as winter itself. He wrote of Scatha, the dragon slain by a prince of the Earthiod long before the story we read begins. He wrote of a people who loved craft and heat and shadow, whose works glittered and whose fall left long scars. In these pages, dragons are not always a present danger. They are history. They are a way of saying that fire and pride do not die in a single age. For many readers, that was enough. Smaug alone could warm 1,000 winter nights. He sleeps and counts. He speaks and lies. He believes himself the final intelligence in the room. And through him, the whole northern tradition breathes again. Other writers listened and answered. C.S. Lewis took the dragon inward. On a quiet island of hot springs and black stone, a spoiled boy named Eustace wakes to find himself changed. His body has become the shape of his greed and loneliness. The pain is sharp. The learning is slow. When the dragon skin is finally cut away, it leaves a scar, because grace, when it is real, always does. In that story, the dragon is not slain. It is outgrown. Kenneth Grahame had already smiled at the old shape. In The Reluctant Dragon, the beast prefers poetry to battle, and the knight prefers peace to applause. The fight becomes a kind of play, a necessary show that allows a town to keep both its legend and its quiet. Sometimes, the story says, courage is knowing how not to fight. Ursula K. Le Guin came from another shore entirely. In Earthsea, dragons speak the true language of the world. They do not bargain in gold. They bargain in names. They are ancient in a way that makes human kingdoms feel brief and bright, like sparks in wind. They are not pets. They are not mounts. They do not love humanity. They recognize kinship, which is colder and truer. When a wizard learns the names of wind and wave, he begins to understand why a dragon has no need of walls or crowns. Here, the dragon is meaning as much as muscle. It is memory, older than maps, when words still carried weight. And McCaffrey crossed a boundary few had crossed before her and gave the dragon a new home. On Pern, dragons are not monsters from old poems. They are living partners, shaped by human craft to meet a falling threat from the sky. A woman touches a hatchling, and a bond forms that is closer than love and fiercer than fear. Together, they burn the air clean. These dragons speak mind to mind. They carry riders through space and through a strange fold in time. The stories are science fiction, and they are also ballads of work, care, and endurance. Here, the dragon is a creature that lives inside community and gives more than it takes. The shelves grew crowded after that, and the old beast learned many new lives. Terry Pratchett found room on a flat world for swamp dragons, nervous, combustible, and prone to igniting without warning, and for a king of dragons raised by a girl who reads too many books and just enough of the right ones. Power without duty, those stories say gently, is only appetite wearing a crown. Robin Hobb sent her dragons down rivers heavy with memory, toward seas where half-formed creatures struggled to be born. These dragons suffer from what humans have done to them. They carry history in their bones and demand a terrible fairness when they rise again. Naomi Novik looked at the Napoleonic Wars and asked a quiet question. What if dragons flew in formation over the sea? A captain wins a hatchling by chance, gives up a life he thought he understood, and learns to become the companion of a mind that will never grow old. Christopher Paolini returned to the oldest warmth in story, the bond between a young life and a growing thing that needs it. Patricia McKillip taught a princess to bring a cup of tea to a dragon's cave and speak as if to a neighbor, and act as brave as any sword stroke. Children grew up with these stories. They carried dragons into classrooms, coffee shops, and long arguments after midnight. Some writers brought the dragon back as an enemy, because a story still needs a fear. Others made dragons into nations, into gods in exile, into survivors, into mothers who would burn a city to save a child. The best of these tales remember something important. A dragon is a person, not a prop. A hoard is not an abstract flaw. It is a choice to keep what others need. Fire is not a trick. It is hunger made visible. Flight is not a line on a map. It is a way of seeing the world that feet on the ground will never know. When a writer holds these truths steady, the dragon breathes, and the page grows warm. Illustrators helped fix the modern dragon in the eye. Pauline Baynes drew Smaug like a jewel that had learned to move. Alan Lee and John Howe painted scales that remembered damp stone and old ash. Michael Whelan lit McCaffrey's dragons in skies that felt like real wind. In margins and on covers, a new canon of shapes settled in. 4 legs and wings. Long serpents without wings. Eyes too clear. Teeth that are tools. Claws that can lift a cup as easily as tear a shield. Smoke before flame. Print also taught readers how dragons think. Smaug speaks like a miser who loves riddles. Fafnir mutters deep and slow, tired of being alive. Earthsea's dragons speak a language that would turn a human throat to fire. McCaffrey's dragons speak with warmth that can harden into steel in a breath. Pratchett's dragon sounds like a king who read the wrong books and believed they were written for him alone. Hobbes' dragons wake from a chorus of half-memories into anger that is sharp and earned. Each voice tells you what the dragon means in that world. Why did this flowering happen in the modern age? Printing gave monsters the long life once reserved for saints and emperors. A child far from moors and mountains could open a book and enter a cave when the day ended. And the modern world, loud with machines, made people hungry for shapes that felt older than factories. A dragon reminds us that wealth is not only money. That power is not only a switch. That courage may look like care rather than noise. In a century of wires and wars and screens, the old shape gave writers a way to speak about greed that kills from far away, about courage that stays, about promises between minds that hold when the weather turns. Worlds also met. Eastern dragons of rain and river entered Western pages. Some writers listened carefully. Others mixed shapes freely. At their best, these crossings felt like a bow rather than a theft. So the dragon walked out of the barrow and into the bookshop. Not tamed. Not reduced. Translated. It learned to speak on the page. It learned to think with us. And it learned to live long enough to pass from one reader to another, changing slightly each time, like fire carried carefully through the dark. That is what literature does with the things that matter. It keeps them in the light and gives them new work to do. Before a dragon ever flew across a cinema screen, it paced behind painted backdrops and through curls of limelight smoke. 19th century showmen loved a good monster. Fairground panoramas unrolled battles between knights and scaled beasts while a hidden organ supplied the roar. Toy theaters sold stiff paper dragons with jointed jaws, so a child could stage a final stand on a kitchen table and feel the weight of decision in their hands. By the time moving pictures arrived, the appetite was ready. The question was not whether people wanted dragons. The question was how to make a creature of smoke and story seem to have weight. Early films tried with animation and tricks of light. A painted serpent might rise from a tank and vanish in a cut. It was enough to suggest the idea. But craft is patient. Model makers learned to wait. Mid-century adventure films turned to stop motion and gave the dragon a body that could hold the eye. Ray Harryhausen understood that the trick was not movement alone. It was light. The sense that the same lamp shining on an actor also struck the scales of the beast. In his work, dragons caught the glow, eyes flashed, shadows pooled beneath bellies. A chained dragon clashed with a cyclops. A many-headed hydra writhed, neck by neck, as if each had its own will. In a dark theater, a boy in the third row curled his toes inside his shoes and leaned forward without knowing why. Then, in the early 1980s, one film turned many viewers into believers. Dragon Slayer gave the world Vermithrax pejorative, a name that sounded like iron dragged across stone. The creature crawled and leapt with cruel grace. Its wings creaked like old leather. Its lair felt damp, used, lived in. Fire did not sparkle. It poured, heavy as water. For once, the land around the dragon looked like a place where people grew food and kept cows. There was mud on boots and fear in voices. People walked out of theaters arguing about what they had seen, and then went back in to see it again. Artists still measure new designs against that long head and those ragged wings. Animation made a different promise. When Maleficent became a dragon at the end of Sleeping Beauty, a cliff seemed to grow a spine and stand upright. The creature was rage given a body. Years later, a soft-hearted green dragon named Elliot wanted nothing more than a home. That story set kindness in the middle of a lumber town and taught its lesson without preaching. Then a white-furred luck dragon took to the clouds in the never-ending story and carried a grieving child out of despair. That long body was not built to frighten. It was built to say that help arrives when you call in the right way. The 1990s found a new road. Dragonheart gave a dragon a voice that sounded like a weathered man. The mouth moved with a rhythm that matched the words, and suddenly a dragon could argue, joke, and bargain as an equal. The story asked its audience to befriend a creature bound by an ancient oath. Not every tale of that decade chose gentleness. One imagined a ruined London where dragons nested in towers and fire became a harvest. Steel and grit answered flame, and the dragon was dragged into the modern world to ask a hard question: what does courage look like when the sky hunts you? Fantasy epics soon returned the dragon to its old throne. Filmmakers gave Smaug a voice that tasted of metal and a slow, coiling movement like fire catching a dry beam. Coins rang under his breath. Smoke slid across gold as if alive. The talk between a small thief and a vast keeper of hoards borrowed tension from the oldest songs and married it to new craft. Audiences leaned forward for the soft moment when a single scale admitted a flaw. Around the same years, another saga sent young dragons over cities and winter fields and turned them into weapons of state. They began small, warm enough to cradle, and grew into forces that broke armies. The stories did not hide the cost. When a dragon burned a field, you saw the ash and counted the harvest lost. Power, the tale said, always sends a bill. On a gentler path, animation found joy in flight and trust. A village raised on fear learned that dragons are not enemies by nature. A boy reached out a trembling hand and listened. He learned how wind moves around a fin, how a rider must follow a body he cannot command. Harnesses were built and rebuilt. Saddles were tested. Friendship became a craft. The music made the air itself seem to lift the seats. Victory came not from killing, but from learning how to live together. Far from northern cliffs, a river spirit took the form of a dragon in a bathhouse where nothing was as it seemed. Long-bodied and bright-eyed, he moved through air as if it were water. This shape came from a tradition where dragons belonged to rain, rivers, and memory. No horde waited there. No knight raised a spear. A child learned a true name and, by remembering it, set the dragon free to be what it had always been. Television had been preparing the ground for dragons for decades. In the 1980s, children met a many-headed queen of evil in a cartoon that borrowed its laws from dice and graph paper. Later, a series asked a harder question: what happens when dragons are not rumors, but facts, visible from a city wall? The answer took armies of artists and long patience. The beasts bent grass when they landed. They stirred dust. They slept in courtyards and strained against chains. They taught viewers to tell the difference between hunger and anger. Games took dragons and made them teachers. At tables, dragons measured nerve and planning. On screens, a wanderer could shout words of power and pull a dragon from the clouds. You listened for the roar over a ridge. You counted breaths. You learned when to stand and when to run. Other worlds made dragons gods, guardians, companions, or lives to be raised from eggs. The lesson never changed. Knowledge first. Courage next. Luck, if it comes. Cards, toys, and living room floors filled with dragons of another kind. Red-winged icons. Wise ancients who planned across centuries. White-eyed beasts whose names sounded like thunder. A boy gathered glowing orbs and summoned a sky serpent who granted wishes. These dragons were not only foes. They were goals. Puzzles. Promises that turned an afternoon into a story worth retelling. Music, sport, and schools borrowed the shape. Dragons flew on flags and jerseys. They roared in stadiums and marched in parades. Theme parks built them from wire and silk and let them breathe fire on a schedule. Children stepped back from the heat, laughed, and leaned in again. Merchants understood that look. Shelves filled with plastic and plush. Modelers hunched under lamps, carving tiny scales with knives. The dragon had completed its long journey, from fear at the edge of a field to a companion in the room. Not because it was weakened, but because it was understood. And still, when the lights dim and the screen glows, when fire rolls across stone and a great shape lifts its head, the old feeling returns. The one that says something powerful is awake. Something that demands attention. Something that, once again, has work to do. Painters once learned how to give an eye the illusion of life, not from inches away, but from a quiet distance, where the mind completes what the hand only suggests. That same instinct followed humanity into the age of screens. Nature itself seemed to answer the old imagination with a reminder. On an island in Indonesia, a great lizard still carries the ancient name. It does not breathe fire, but its mouth is full of ancient bacteria, and its heavy tail moves with enough force to teach respect to anyone who steps too close. For a moment, the dragon stepped out of myth and back into the sunlight. Television, always eager to play between wonder and reason, once staged a careful illusion, a make-believe excavation, asking what the bones of a dragon might look like if such a creature had ever walked the earth. Scientists joined the game, not to destroy the dream, but to frame it gently. They explained why wings would need to grow a certain way. Why fire, at least as we imagine it, could not live in living lungs. And in doing so, they gave ordinary viewers permission to hold belief and doubt in the same open hands without forcing either to disappear. Technology, as it always does, changed the grammar of the dragon. Practical models learned to move, muscles pushing beneath sculpted skin, wings beating the air with deliberate weight. Then came images born entirely of light and mathematics. Bodies could ripple from nose to tail. Scales could catch reflections that never existed on set. The finest dragons, though, were never one thing alone. A flame begins as a real torch beneath a camera lens, then becomes a living sheet of fire in a digital hall. Ash clings to a cheek because a makeup artist arrived before dawn and believed in the moment enough to make it real. A rider leans into a saddle fixed to a rig that bucks like a storm, while a blank wall waits patiently to become a sky. The difference between a good dragon and one quickly forgotten is not only money. It is respect. Respect for how light falls, for how weight shifts, for the memory that a dragon is not merely a sound or an effect, but a character, with habits, with a past, with reasons for what it guards and what it destroys. Not just a noise that burns a barn. Across every shape the dragon has worn, certain themes survive unchanged. Greed invites trouble. Power without duty exacts a cost no city can afford. Trust, when it is earned, can turn fear into strength. Names matter. A watcher beside a spring is as old as the first village and as new as a glowing screen. When a dragon descends, a story must choose what it means. Is this creature a storm to be endured? A neighbor to be understood? Or a mirror, held gently or cruelly to someone who has taken more than they need? Good stories do not rush this choice. They allow a dragon to be terrible, and then noble, and sometimes both at once. So the dragon now lives everywhere. In theaters and living rooms. On game nights and schoolyards. On jerseys and banners. It is a sound cue, a team name, a soft blue glow on a phone held too close to sleep. And yet, it is still there in the sky. When clouds stack over a heated field and take the shape of a spine and a head, the heart still responds before the mind finds words. The creature belongs to us because it always has. It walks with us into an age of new tools and old needs, still asking the same questions with smoke resting softly on its breath. If you were to gather every dragon you have met and place them side by side, the first thing you would notice is how deeply each one wears the land that shaped it. Where rivers rule the year, the dragon grows long and flowing. It rides cloud and rain as if weather itself were a thought it learned to finish. Where winters are hard and burial mounds dot the hills, the dragon grows heavy, weighted with treasure and with memory. Where kings must prove that heaven allows them to rule, dragons rise on banners and robes, stitched into authority itself. The dragon becomes a mirror for the work a people must do to survive. It teaches through fear and through favor. It reveals what a culture holds sacred and what it believes is dangerous. In China, the dragon speaks of water, order, and rightful rule. It coils in cloud, dives into rivers, and carries a pearl painters never quite allow it to touch, a knot of wisdom, thunder, or destiny that must always be pursued, never seized. On an emperor's robe, the five-clawed dragon is not decoration. It is a promise that rain will come in season, that canals will be kept clear, that grain will be stored with care. In streets and festivals, dragons live again as dance and drum. Silk bodies rise into the air. Thunder is borrowed from rhythm. And a city asks the year to be kind. Elsewhere, serpent kings guard springs and stairways. They teach that water and life are inseparable. In India and Southeast Asia, a many-hooded Naga shelters wisdom itself from the storm. A bridge flanked by stone bodies reminds kings that their cities rest on currents older than crowns. Across Korea and Japan, dragons teach patience. A creature waits centuries for a falling pearl and rises not by force, but by worth. In the West, the dragon watches. The word itself carries the meaning of seeing clearly, of guarding without sleep. It coils beside springs, groves, and golden trees, testing whether change is earned or stolen. In the cold north, the dragon sleeps on gold because winter makes wealth and survival feel the same. Here, dragons warn what happens when desire grows warm in darkness. Through church walls and village squares, dragons learned moral language. Sometimes slain. Sometimes leashed. Sometimes set to work, spitting rain from rooftops, keeping stone dry. And still, the lessons remained practical. Honor what feeds you. Keep your promises. Do not take more than your share when someone nearby is hungry. Across continents and centuries, a few truths repeat until they feel like laws. Water is life. Wealth hoarded invites ruin. Boundaries matter. Courage is both private and shared. And power, always, asks a price. Dragons endure because they are never simple. They bless and they burn. They crown and they judge. They are fear and they are responsibility. Large enough to carry a culture's hopes and warnings on the same scaled back without breaking. And so every age finds its own dragon. A river village calls for rain. A kingdom claims heaven's favor. A nation borrows courage for a hard winter. A child looks at the sky and feels something ancient stir. The dragon remains, a face for power that can help or harm, a test of the hand that holds the spear, and a story that teaches watchfulness in the language of fire and water. And when sleep finally comes, it comes knowing that some stories stay with us because we still need what they are trying so patiently to teach. Old books of wonders added more chords to the bundle. Medieval lapidaries wrote of draconites, stones cut from the heads of living dragons, said to cure what no doctor could. Imagine the lesson hidden there. A lord with a knife. A sleeping beast. Men holding a sack beneath its jaw. A priest whispering prayers that the last breath bless rather than curse. It is a story about daring. And about value earned through danger. Good myths always double as lessons for courage and for commerce. Mistakes of nature become proof, and stay that way long after better answers arrive. A giant shark's tooth rests on a bishop's desk. He calls it a dragon's tongue and holds it to a poisoned man's throat. The man survives. The tooth enters a reliquary. A crocodile skin is nailed to a church beam. Children grow up beneath it. They inherit the fear and the relief together. Dragons are also useful. They are large enough to force a city to act as one. They are not neighbors. They are not armies. They can be punished without starting feuds that outlive the storyteller. A dragon guards a spring or a road. It sets a deadline. It asks for tribute. It can be faced. This makes it perfect for a good story. The hero can plan. The crowd can watch. The lesson can land. Victory never comes easily. The hide turns blades. The breath withers courage. Someone must listen longer than fear allows. Someone must notice the weak place. Someone must accept help. That is the lesson told beside fires. Be brave, but be clever first. Carry water for the one with the torch. Greed, too, needs a body. When wealth is buried with kings, a village wonders what it becomes underground. A dragon answers simply, gold sleeps, gold wakes, and it will claim a life if promises are broken. Later ages use the same beast. A banker holds too much. A city goes hungry. The mind does not reach for a ledger. It reaches for a dragon counting coins with a dim, patient eye. Power is never kind on its own. A dragon throne says so without words. Rain judges a rain. Rivers speak. In one land, a ruler learns mercy must walk beside fire. In another, floods say heaven has turned its head. The weight of power becomes visible. Counted in ash. Measured in fields. Dragons returned strongest when the ground was ready. Cities grew. Bells replaced seasons. People longed for older shapes. Science explained the bones. Stories kept the fire. One tells the truth of earth. The other tells the truth of the heart. Children understand this best. They want something to fear and something to face. A story is the safest cliff there is. A dragon can be friend or foe. The lesson changes. The shape holds. And above it all remains flight. We have always looked up. Birds taught us envy. Dragons taught us how to imagine. At the deepest edge of the symbol, a serpent still binds the world. Creation is not finished. It must be kept. So dragons endure. Because stone gives up secrets slowly. Because fear watches. Because imagination gives fear a face. Because power still needs judging. Because storms still come. Because gold is still heavy. And because when the fire burns low, someone will always ask for one more story, and someone must rise to close the door.